Hello and welcome to The Login. Not everyone can buy a multi-million pounds property. So when you want to sell, you need a reputable agent acting on your behalf. With me today is young entrepreneur Lola May Massingham to tell me what it takes to succeed in such a competitive industry. Lola, welcome and thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much. It's really nice to meet you, and I'm really looking forward to talking with you today.
So tell me a bit about your business, Prime Coastal Property.
Yes, yeah. So my business was sort of founded on the basis that I really wanted to create sort of a very bespoke selling service for both, my sellers and also for buyers as well. Do very high-end marketing. I mean, my thing is marketing, luxury marketing, creating cinematic videography. I think in this area, because there's a lot of, prime, super prime properties, they really need to be showcased. And I felt that a lot of the time they just weren't sort of being sold in the way that I see them being sold. I think they should be presented to a very high standard, and also deliver a service which is very high standard. So yes, I founded my business under 2 years ago. I'd say about 20 months now. It's almost like having a baby. I'm like, oh, it's 20 months old, but yeah, it's gone very quickly that time.
We'll come on more to your business and
Yeah,
what you've done in a little while. Let's start with finding out a little bit more about you.
yeah,
Where did you spend your formative years and
yeah.
go to school?
Yep. So I went to a school in Winchester called
Mm.
St. Swithin's. I went there until I was about 14, and then I moved to a mixed school because that's normal life.
Yeah,
Um,
I went to an all boys school, so I went to Paul Grammar. So
yeah, you know where I'm coming from then. I mean, I think it taught me a lot of my life, sort of, not life experience, but sort of how to communicate with people
Mhm.
and sort of those sort of like charisma skills. I don't know. I feel like I learned a lot from there. I should have been more academic. However, I think I took the other thing, which was people.
I've got
Yeah.
a 16-year-old daughter, and
Yes.
I always say to her and her friends, you can be as bright as you are, you can be as beautiful as you are, but if you
Yeah.
don't have communication skills, then you're going to suffer in life.
Absolutely.
And communication is king, I think.
Yeah.
How important was your actual education in formulating your path into business ownership?
I think from a young age, I don't know, the term entrepreneurial, I think it's a good term in some ways, but at the same time, it's sort of quite a varied term. You can call a lot of things entrepreneurial. I would say from quite a young age, say I was, probably 11 or 12, I was creating perfumes out of petals and selling them to my neighbors. I was always very, like, I started modeling jobs when I was sort of 13 or 14.
Mhm.
Did a lot of jobs in London. So I was always trying to find ways to make some sort of cash flow from quite a young age, but also coming up with ideas of how I could be different to maybe people around me or people my age. So I did sort of, it stemmed from that, but that was more about probably my upbringing in terms of my parents. My dad was a very big house builder. It's not the reason I'm in property personally, but he was sort of, it's in my blood.
Yeah.
And my mum, again, saleswoman all her life. My grandmother, very strong woman who worked her way up to have 250,000 plus employees. So I think that sort of come back from that background. The schooling helped. And I think, it is good to focus in school as much as you can, but not to overpressure yourself.
What specifically then made you want to be an estate agent or a high value property seller? I think that sounds better than estate agent.
My passion is people and marketing. My mum is somebody who walks in a room and the room lights up. That's
Hmm.
how I see her, and that's how a lot of other people see her. And I think when you enjoy meeting new people and, working in an environment which is quite high pressure and it's quite, you never know who you're going to meet, but it's
Mm.
exciting. And I think that's where I thought property could be interesting for me. I never looked at it as, yes, I definitely want to be a property person. I was more like, do I want to do psychology? Very interested in psychology, but that does come into sort of what I do as well.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
yeah, when I was 16, I did some work experience at a local estate agent who have got numerous offices locally. And yeah, after sort of a week or so, they offered me like a job, and I just went sort of full time into agency. I left college. That was a decision that I think at the time, my dad was like, are you leaving college? I was like, yes. And I decided that it wasn't for me. I didn't want to sit there and continue to sort of sit in a classroom for 4 or 5 years. And if I had become a criminal lawyer or anything to do with, because I was studying law
Mhm.
and psychology, it would have taken quite a long time. And I think I was just ready to go into it.
You worked, as you said, for a couple of local
Yes.
agents during your formative career.
Yeah.
How did that help you establish your credibility in the industry?
Obviously people, they do look at sort of your reputation, they look at what you've sold, they look at who you've worked for specifically, and I think because we're such a close-knit area,
Hmm.
they want to know that they're dealing with somebody who knows what they're talking about. Obviously with my age, that's something where, I have to know what I'm talking about, make sure that I've done my research. And also I would say that now, having sort of 6 years of experience, just doing that every single day, that does make me more experienced.
Yeah, yeah,
Having worked at previous companies, so I was doing sort of low to mid market originally. And then sort of 2 years in, I think I was about just turning, I want to say 19. I then got poached to go into the high end. So that's what I did. I went over to the high end, and it was sort of mid to high, which at that point, again, I'm sort of thrown into the deep end again. It's a very different market actually.
yeah,
But I think getting the experience of both, and both times not having sort of that personal training experience. Some agencies like Connell's do offer sort of a very hands-on training,
yeah.
whereas I sort of learnt on the job.
Casting your mind back to the
Yeah.
first day that you did an unaccompanied viewing,
Yeah.
how did you feel then when you went out on your own?
One of my traits that I don't really like is like when I'm under pressure, I tend to forget a lot of things, but I do remember the feeling of going there, and I think I had like 4 or 5 viewings at the same property. So I was just going to go there and then meet somebody, and then straight after I was going to meet somebody else. So I think I was nervous about the first viewing, sort of how it was going to go, what they were going to say, were they going to ask me a question that I didn't know the answer to. Um, I've always been brought up on the basis that if you don't know the answer, you say, look, I'm really sorry, I'm going to find out the answer for you, rather than sort of
Yeah, yeah, fudging it.
go off on one.
Mm.
But yeah, I just think I was like, I'm going to be myself. And luckily it was okay. I did feel quite stressed because one of the viewers didn't turn up. I do remember that. So there's a few things, but as the years have gone on now, that's just a normal occurrence.
Yeah,
So
no, I understand that. Yeah. You're obviously very glamorous and you're working in a very
thank you.
glamorous part of the property market.
Yeah.
How difficult was it to start up, particularly in the high end market, on your own? Having worked for agents in the area too.
I wasn't underestimating how difficult it would be. I thought that taking on my experience, and I know some people would be like, I've got 20 years experience, which is fantastic. Okay, it's
Hmm.
fantastic. But I don't think you need necessarily all of that to make a successful business. I think if you have enough experience and you have enough contacts and you're very passionate about what you do, and you're good at what you do, then you can make a success. That's one thing I had in my head, was no matter what was the opinion of, oh, well, she's very young, push through that, stay in your own lane. And that was my main mission. And I think even now, there's days where it's tough.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's a very tough industry. I think with luxury as well, there's a lot of investment that goes into it. So, for me, there's heavy amounts of investment that I've sort of saved up over the years and I've put into my business. Um, and the overheads are not small. So
no, no.
you've sort of just got to, every day you get up, got to make sure that you're following up and you're getting the leads. And I think that's the most difficult part, is people say to me, well, how do you get these sort of big leads?
How did you actually get your first customer?
So my first customer, in fact, she's actually a very good friend now. They
I
gave
thought you were
me
saying she was still a customer. I thought, haven't you
no.
sold her property? You know?
So she's a very good friend now. She gave me an opportunity,
Yeah,
very big opportunity in the start of my business because she believed in me. A multi-million-pound house at the start of your business, and I thought, wow, like this is a good start.
yeah,
And I thought, I've got to give everything to this, I've got to make sure that I'm putting all the time and the effort. And yeah, so what a great opportunity. That started me off on a bit of a roll then, because
yeah.
then I sort of got, oh, who's this girl who's, some people knew me, but some people didn't. They're like, she's obviously instructing some really great houses. I love her marketing. It's very different. So then I was getting more instructions.
Mm.
So I think you just need one or two people to like believe in what you're doing. You know, when you sort of have a connection with somebody, or they trust you, or you just get on, or you present to them. Like I sat there and did a pitch about mathematically what had sold and
Hmm.
worked out all the price per square foot. That's one thing with me, is I don't just wing it and say,
Hmm.
oh, I think it's that value because such and such sold that for 2 years ago. Well, it's not up to date.
Why did you get yourself drawn to that part of the market? Was it the return on your business is better for you? Was it the glamour of the associated life? What sort of things drove you into that?
It's a bit of a mixture. So I'm not driven by money.
Hmm.
I think money is a great addition to life.
Hmm.
But my main thing is like I see success as building a successful brand, and it makes me happy and I get up every day and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think for me it was like I love luxury marketing, and by luxury marketing I mean where you can present property, you can really get involved with it, aerial videography.
Yeah.
It's very sort of creative. And with sort of low to mid market, there's less of that because obviously the properties are less big.
Yeah.
They don't have huge different, for example, like an underground cinema or
Hmm.
underground pool. Like,
Gets the creative juices flowing,
yeah,
doesn't
it
it?
gets that going. And I think that's sort of why, but also the reason was, yes, in terms of 2 or 3 years time for me and for future family and all the things I want, obviously money wise, it's obviously heavy investment to begin with, like very heavy, thousands of pounds, but
Yeah.
then eventually I'm starting to see the rewards of that now,
Yeah.
but it has taken time.
So you said you're not driven by money.
No.
What's the other major drivers that do make you want to succeed? You said about getting up in the morning and enjoying your
Yeah.
work. What
Yeah.
what other things?
So number one, family for me. I'm inspired by my family.
Hmm.
Always have been. I admire every single person in it. Really, I think it's not been easy. Obviously, I did go to a very good school.
Yeah.
I have come from quite a fortunate background, but we have seen hardship as well. Won't bore you with that, but there are a lot of times that money comes and goes at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
it does.
People die, life changes, and I think I saw a lot at quite a young age. So I think for me, it's like for my future and for my mum and for my dad and for my grandparents, I just want to make sure that I have time. Like I'm driven by having time back at some point. So I want to work really hard now and then get time back. So my drive is to have a very different future in 10 or 15 years, I hope, to just have more time,
In a
basically.
different industry, or where do you see that?
No, I want to grow my brand to a point where, so I've got some ideas of what I'm going to be doing with my
Okay.
brand to expand it hugely, because I do like the fact that nowadays you can work from any place in the world in a lot
Yeah.
of industries. And like with mine, I'm off to Dubai next week because I'm dealing with a couple of deals out there at the moment. And I like the flexibility of that to explore the world, meet people, travel, while also working. Obviously, it's not just as like glamorous as it sounds because it's genuinely not. It's actually
Yeah.
very stressful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but there are times where it's really enjoyable. And I guess, yeah, other drivers are I absolutely love cars.
Right. I've seen a couple of cars in your videos as well.
I know that might sound a bit shallow, but genuinely, I love cars and I can't help it. It's not even bags,
You-
shoes, it's cars.
You're like my son. Yeah.
So yeah, so that's another drive for me. I need my Stingray Corvette, and then we can. I'm joking. No.
What business skills
Yeah.
have you had to learn quickly in
Yeah.
starting up your own business? What surprised you about what you had to learn?
I think it was more to do with how much like all the regulations and the fact that you just think, oh, setting up an estate agent is sort of quite an easy process. I know it doesn't sound, some people say, oh, well, what do you actually have to do that? And you have to go through quite a few hoops. There's a lot of like obviously HMRC, and there's a lot more regulations nowadays. And also the fact that you've got to plan all your branding and like how you're going to present it, also go through loads of different quotes and look at different offices, look at different like everything. There's a lot that goes into it. It probably took me 5 or 6 months. I could have done it quicker to set it all up.
But being and let's use the word entrepreneur,
Yeah.
it is quite an eye-opener, because I think a lot of people don't realise that you have to have multi-skills across
Yeah.
so many different spectrums.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what your industry is, you and I will have parallels in the knowledge base that we have
Yeah.
to have. And it's incredible the amount you've got to learn. It's very different to having a 9 to 5.
It's very different. And yeah, I'm sure you've experienced all of that, because it's not a 9 to 5. I mean, one thing obviously my business is open sort of 9 till 6
Yeah.
generally, but I do have more flexibility with my job, in that, if there's a certain day where the sun's more out, or like, the weather's better, or whatever it is, like, I can be more flexible about where I am and what I'm doing, and making sure that it's really high end for the client. So I'm not just sort of like listing thousands of properties and not really putting all that effort into it, and just saying, oh yeah, just book the photographer whenever and it's raining. Like, for me, I'm very hands-on with it, and it's good to also, I go to the gym a lot, and I make sure that I'm doing that as well, because I think that's been my biggest thing with growing my business, is like, to keep me, so I'm very motivated. However, the gym really helps with my mindset.
You surprised me when we were walking into the studio here. Boxing. I cannot see you in a boxing ring, I have to say, and I'm probably sexist, whatever, but I just cannot see you in a boxing ring.
I'll just sort of summarize that little thing. Yeah, I do enjoy boxing. It's more mentally. I
Right.
am not an aggressive person whatsoever. I actually very much dislike confrontation. It's not me. So I would say it's more about getting the energy, like negative energy out,
Yeah.
and just expressing myself physically. And yeah, I love boxing. That's something I
Right.
do. And it's not to harm anybody.
I better not ask too many difficult questions, I think. Yeah.
Oh, I did Krav Maga as well,
Oh,
which is
really?
Israeli
Oh, no,
self-defense.
that's based
So
on
Mossad.
Israel. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was going to say, oh, now
So I
that
can
is
do
that
that
is
as well.
very hardcore, isn't it? Let's pass over before you kill me.
Oh,
What
dear.
about life in general? What
Yeah.
have you learned that's been eye-opening for you since you started the business?
I would say my biggest thing is, when you get the knockdowns, is not to let it just totally take over you and affect your entire day or week. Because some of the knockdowns, like, imagine you've got £6 million house, and they say they're going to instruct, and then they turn around and they disinstruct, or they go with somebody else. It is the biggest. It's like losing. You've not got the money in your bank. However, you're looking at what you could have in 2 months' time, and you're like, "Whew, that's a big hit." And there have been, in the beginning, for me, it was a massive. It almost feels like a big. It's like a heart's breaking sometimes, because you've put so much into it, and it is time as well. Like, time. One thing with estate agents, you don't get paid for your time, really. And I guess, for you, I guess sometimes it's the same, because you've got to put a lot of energy into creating questions before, and that sort of stuff. You put a lot of time into it, and that doesn't get taken into account. Like, for example, all the driving that I do, that it can be extra time, or spending a couple of hours on valuations, which is fine, and I enjoy doing it. But it is, you might not get it. You
Yeah.
might not get the job.
Yeah.
And again, that's taken you away from what you might have got something else, but you have to trial every single one of them, basically.
Since you started in 2023, you started,
Yeah.
didn't you? Well, obviously in 2024 we had an election.
Yeah.
How has that affected your business?
I think it's such a shame, actually, the occurrences of last year, because it was so. The market wasn't moving. It wasn't moving down, or it wasn't moving up. So it was just very, like, consistently flat. Last year was very, very quiet. I actually started my business in probably one of the hardest post-pandemic ever times to start a luxury business.
Yeah.
But I always had the mindset that, like, it doesn't matter. You might not get 5,000 sales, but you might get one or two. Like, initially, you've just got to look at, where you can get a bit of cash flow, and where keep investing until it works. And yeah, I haven't gone down. So that's been a success for me. And the most difficult time, I think last year, was challenging, because you would take properties on, and unfortunately, because there was such an elevated level of pricing, so during pandemic, there was 200, £300,000 increases on a lot of properties, sometimes more, sometimes a little bit less.
Why? Because of people moving away from the cities and down
Moving
to the
away,
coast.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so literally moving from Surrey or London, or even Midlands, abroad, anywhere. So, there was huge amounts of investment coming into this area, and so therefore the property prices elevated hugely. So rather than just climbing 2 to 3% in the year, I mean, we're talking serious percentage increases,
Yeah.
which really messed up the market in terms of valuations last year. Like last year and the year before, you were going to valuation and you're looking at what their neighbour sold for, and you're thinking, well, technically it should be in and around that figure. However, the market's leveled again.
Right.
So it hasn't dropped. Like, I don't like the term like the market's crashing or it's dropped, or because in my opinion, it's just gone back to where it should be,
Right. Yeah.
sort of if the COVID pandemic wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. I think in life generally, with prices, whatever it is,
Yeah.
we don't like to see big swings, do
Yeah.
we? I think a steady growth is far more easy to
Yeah,
cope
yeah,
with and
for
everything.
sure. Yeah.
But the swings, and that
Stressful.
leads me on beautifully, segueing into the next question, because I know from what you said to me off air, you have dealings with Americans a lot.
Yeah.
How's the political change in the USA affected you as well? Especially with all the,
Uh,
at the time of recording, there's all the tariff stuff going on with Trump. So
Yeah.
how is this affecting it? Has anything happened yet?
I mean, for example, like my ultra high-end listings are being massively affected because majority of them are overseas buyers and like US based as well. Um,
So
I
exchange
mean,
rates have a bearing as well, yeah.
exactly. And like towards the end of last year, there was a lot more American buyers, and now there's still some that I'm dealing with. However, it's gone a bit stale again.
Right.
They're all a bit nervous and they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know whether the UK is a very safe bet either at the moment, especially, I mean, individuals with a lot of money, they're usually very, very professional business people who have dealt with multiple businesses and people throughout their lives, so they know what they're doing with their money
Mm.
generally. Sadly, there's so much disruption in the world. It is
Yeah.
affecting the market in the UK. And yeah, as I say, I've still got the American buyers, but there's just too much change all the time. Nobody knows what they're doing.
Who do you see stepping into their shoes from overseas?
So in terms of like new buyers,
Yeah, yeah. New
um,
Asians, maybe? Chinese?
yeah, well, we did have so a lot during COVID. There was a lot of like
Yeah.
Singapore, Chinese,
There's a lot of Arabic.
Russian, but not Russian anymore.
Yeah. There's a lot of
So
Arabic investment in London, for
huge
example.
amounts,
Yeah.
and down here, yeah,
Yeah.
I deal with Arabs, and Saudi Arabia, Dubai. But Dubai, there's so much going on there at the moment
All
that
right.
for them, like obviously, all their investment is a lot in and around the UAE,
Yeah.
understandably because that's growing hugely. But yeah, there are like obviously, I think at the moment though, Mayfair, Knightsbridge, and all like Chelsea, like a lot of the high end areas in London are very stale as well. Talking to friends who are working in London, like not a lot of transactions are happening from Saudi Arabia and Dubai anymore, when there was before, which is again just a reflection of the times, unfortunately.
Yeah. How do you deal with disappointment, such as, I don't know, not winning a client that you're hoping to win or
Sure.
failing to make a sale and them going somewhere else?
I've learnt that as long as I put every bit of effort and time and investment into what I'm doing with a client, it's not actually going to be my fault. As long as I've kept up with communication, my really important thing is that not every agent, but there are a lot of agencies who lack communication with clients. So, for example, you don't have updates. I'm not talking like every single few days you need to
Hmm.
update, but statistics are really important. Like how many people are viewing the property online, what the marketing strategy is looking like. Do we need to change it? Do we need to, like, one thing I've started to implement is do a really nice cinematic video, and then if it's not bringing in the leads that we need to, in 5 or 6 weeks time, we do a new form of marketing strategy. So we get a lifestyle video done, or we get
Hmm.
some different sort of marketing, so we don't just leave it stale. So that for me has been really effective because it shows willing, it shows that I'm going to put a lot of time and effort into it. And if I do get let down, and it's unfortunately just how the industry is.
Yeah, yeah.
You've got to, it's a bit like gambling at the end of the day. Like sometimes, because this type of market's gambling, because you don't always know, because you never know it might change, things might, become more, like the market might move a bit and there's more buyers, but then it could be really quiet for a month or two. And it's not because you priced it wrong, or it's not because the marketing is not good. It's just because literally people are not making the decisions.
So
So
it's a really good ethos that you have there, that if I can paraphrase that you
yeah,
can sort of shrug your shoulders and move on and
yeah,
just accept that it is what it is.
yeah, sure.
A lot of business people find that very difficult because they
Yeah,
can get too personal about it.
yeah,
They can think, oh God, we haven't sold that, I must be failing, and it can be just factors outside your
yeah.
control. Yeah, I
I
get it.
am, I would say that I am sort of a sensitive person, not in a negative way, but I do feel like I do invest time and I do get to know my clients, and a lot of them have become friends as well because people say keep friends away from business, but at the same time, I love getting to know people and building relationships, and
Yeah,
I don't just want to take a house on and look at it as like a transaction and just move on. That's not what I'm interested in.
right.
Yeah.
As a young woman, um, have you had to put up with skepticism and especially starting out? And I've got to mention the sexism word as
Yeah,
well.
sure.
And have you faced any of that as a problem so far? And if so, how do you deal with it?
Yes. I think throughout, since a very young age, I've faced quite a lot of criticism, in terms of, I was quite a geeky kid when I was like 12 or 13, and I was like low ponytail, little titanium glasses, very sort of slick back, like, and a little bit chubby, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the time, I was bullied quite a lot. So then I think from a young age, I was very like, I learned to become quite thick-skinned, and yeah, as I say, a lot of life experience and things that adults experience, I experienced at quite young age and stuff. And I think when I started modeling and I almost, what's the word? Oh yeah, glow up or something. People use that term. I
Glow up, right?
glow up,
Yeah.
new term. But basically, my hair, like I used to curl my hair and I could do my makeup and my face shape changed, more angular, all of this. So I started modeling, and from that I got more criticism because, oh, she loves herself, or
Yeah.
all she cares about is how she looks, or like people always, there was a lot of jealousy,
Yeah.
and I've dealt with a lot of jealousy, and I've dealt with a lot of, because this is a male dominated industry,
Yeah. And that's
hugely.
why I asked it, because I'm well aware of that. You see, jealousy is perpetuated by inadequacy.
Yeah,
And there's been people, believe it or not, there's been people who've been jealous of us over the
yeah,
years as well, and the
yeah. No,
successes
I
we've
can
achieved.
completely see
And
that.
and I just say, well, that's their problem, not
Yeah.
mine. That's the way I
Well,
deal with it.
that's the thing, because I actually think when people get jealous, it means they're unhappy with something about themselves or the way they are. And one thing that I'm not one of these people that just compliments people for the sake of it, but if somebody is wearing a really nice dress, or their hair's done nice or whatever, I've always been, wow, you look amazing, or I want to compliment people because I know what that can do for somebody's confidence, or do for somebody, rather than staring at somebody because they look great, or staring at somebody because they're achieving a lot, or they're in a nice car, or whatever it is. Thumbs up,
Yeah.
amazing car, like
Yeah.
good for you. And if they choose to respond in an arrogant way, that's fine. But I think the best way to be is just spread, like, I'm not one of these preachers, like, spread positivity. But I do think, try to be like, the green-eyed monster is the worst thing you can be.
Smile and the world smiles with you. That's
Exactly.
it. That's the way I see it. Right. What's different about your approach to selling compared to your
Yeah,
competitors? Because your videos,
yeah,
particularly, let's have a look at that. Now, as a person with a lot of
yeah.
experience, obviously producing videos, hats off to the people you used to do them, because they
Thank
are
you.
good. If you came to us, they'd be better, but
Yeah,
that's another story. But
yeah. Well, I'm sure they would be
yeah,
amazing.
but
Callum, don't listen to this.
yeah,
I'm
Callum, listen to it, listen and learn.
joking.
Um, no, you produce great videos for your
Yeah.
clients, and I know that some of the other agents do that,
Mm.
do videos as
Hmm.
well, and I've seen some of them as well. They're not
Yeah.
as good as yours, quite frankly. They're really
Thank you.
not.
I appreciate that.
Um, and why do you produce it to such a high standard?
It's a bit of a USP of mine, but I genuinely believe that this area deserves to be promoted.
Mm,
And I think, as I touched on lifestyle video earlier, when I
yeah,
do a general sort of video tour as well and present a property, I do touch on lifestyle. And I think people buy into this area because of what the lifestyle offers and the amenities. And I think that's what a lot of the, local agents have lacked is, I would describe, not to be offensive, but I would describe that sometimes some of the videography can be a little bit robotic and
Yeah.
it's not sort of passionate and
It's perfunctory.
yeah. And I think it can come across like that. Therefore, if somebody opens a video and they watch it and they think, I'm switched off within 20 seconds.
You see, the paradox I've got here is it's great video,
Yeah.
but I also think the people that are looking at that, your
Yeah.
end purchaser, are busy
Correct.
people, and they want facts straight to the point.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. And but you're selling, as much as a property, you're selling a lifestyle as well, and an environment, aren't you, on the coast?
So I've now managed to capture that issue. So I've managed to, for example, a lot of the ultra high end, sort of 14, 15 million plus, I am now sending, where, for example, I'm sending like a shorter clip. So it can be like a 50-second to a minute long video, capturing all the lifestyle, capturing some of the main points, like it's 10 bedrooms or whatever it is. So they don't have to sit and watch that. So I am presenting that as well. But I have sold multiple properties now because people say, oh, I bet it doesn't sell anything. It does.
Yeah.
It sells.
Absolutely.
A lot of the people are out of area. Therefore, for example, I've started operating in Somerset as well, in Surrey, and those sort of regions like Lymington as well. And a lot of those buyers are from out of area. So they're looking at it and they're thinking, we really want to know everything about this house. We want to capture it in the best, because they necessarily don't want to make a 4-hour trip down if it's not going to be worth it.
Yeah.
So I don't want to oversell something or undersell it. It needs to be where it is so people don't go,
No, I get it. Do you know, for years and years, I spoke with local estate agents saying that video is the key to success for you. And every single door was shut in my face because they weren't interested. And what they saw was expense, not revenue.
Yes.
And I really stand up and applaud you. Dealing with such high value properties and clients as well, who are maybe famous, certainly wealthy. How much of a concern is security?
Very high. I mean, it depends. For example, it depends on whether they're a celebrity or what background, so what country they come from. Middle Easterns tend to be, they really want utmost privacy, lots of land, and obviously around here that's quite difficult.
Yeah.
So that's where I sort of sell like manor houses as well, where they invest in those. And in general, for like celebrities, yes, electric gates. You need to make sure it's quite discreet. Obviously, transactions have to be very discreet.
I'm thinking particularly in the security during the selling process rather than of the properties themselves. How do you sort the wheat from the chaff?
Yeah, so I have to vet everybody who's viewing. So one of the things with agents, they don't tend to sort of ask for proof of funds before. If it's a property over a certain amount of money, sort of in the millions, like, I will be asking for proof of funds before. I'll also be doing background checks as well, in terms of obviously not police background checks, but I will be making sure that,
they're who they say they are and all the rest
their
of it.
company is there and all the rest of it.
Because I suppose a real risk is that somebody goes there to case the joint and, to plan a robbery or something like that. And also, I had in a recent episode, I had a bodyguard on here, sat in your chair there, and we were talking about the need to prepare before they go, before their task is complete. And I see that the same for criminals. So how do you protect against that?
I think it's really just, I always reassure my clients that I'm very, because you have to know your clients who with HMRC and stuff. I'm very invested in doing things properly and making sure that they are exactly who they say they are. They're not connected to anything dodgy, and making sure that before we do the viewing, we have multiple conversations on the phone or Zoom, or maybe I meet them, we have coffee before and talk about what they're looking for. So sort of get to know the client. You've got to be really, really, really careful, and also listen to the need of the property I'm selling. Like they might say, do you know what, we're really, really discreet.
Yeah.
And we need to know, exactly what's going on at exactly what hour, who's going, and, will there be anybody else coming with them? And therefore, you've got to make sure that somebody else is not just going to turn up. It might be a kid coming with them, but
Yeah.
you're still going to make sure that you know about that because,
Yeah. Kid knocking something off knocking
yeah,
over an ornament or
there's a
something.
lot of things you've got to
Yeah.
consider. So it's just about being on it really and making sure that you're doing your job properly.
How do other agents in the area see you?
That's a very good
Oh, it's a pause
question.
there. Yeah. The first pause I've
It's
had.
a very good question. I really think, I've got some good connections around here. I work with a couple of the local agents are really, really collaborative, like
Right.
really collaborative.
I was going to ask you about
Some of
collaboration
them,
too. Yeah.
some of them do not want to hear it. Right.
Because they're just competing with you.
Um, they don't believe that it works, and
What collaboration?
I'll come on to that briefly. Yes. So my big thing is collaborating. I've got huge connections with agents in London and Surrey, huge connections, and we refer business to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So we're happy to split fees. We're
Yeah.
not funny about it. Whereas around here, it's like taking everything for yourself. And I'm not like that. I think there's much more. Firstly, like rapport building with working with other people, and they'll send you business, or you're actually gonna make more money because you're working together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's plenty to go around. They say, oh, it's a small area. There's plenty to go around. And, there are local agents who have been very good to me and who have been very positive and said, I love what you're doing. And they've helped me and, yeah, been really positive. There are others who see me as a threat, as a
Yeah.
competition. And
And
that's,
they're jealous. There again, you see, I'm putting
yeah,
words into your mouth, but that is the core.
yeah,
It's a really interesting thing that in our industry,
mm,
you can't produce a TV program without some degree of
yeah,
collaboration. It's a heavy industry and
yeah,
freelancers, right? But there is still very little intercompany
yeah,
collaboration. Yet I've always maintained that with other businesses,
mm,
and a lot of the established local businesses know
yeah,
me full well, and we use them and they use us,
yeah.
because you have at the end of the day you have different skill sets, and
Uh,
rather than being
yeah.
afraid of the competition, you actually work together and you both grow stronger.
I totally agree with you. I think that's the power in collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. Like on this big house that I'm listing in near Winchester, huge manor house. I mean, I've come together with a couple of agents that my clients dealt with before, and we're working as a team. We're a team, and it's like
Yeah.
unheard of. You talk to big corporates, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" But the truth is, in this sort of market, you need every avenue you can. My avenue is PR, exposure. I have huge connections, even to, TV
Yeah.
production, into, having been on Netflix, having been on like lots of different magazines, Financial Times, all of that sort of stuff. So my thing is PR and exposure. You might have another agent that's been around for 40, 50 years and knows every single person
Yeah.
in that radius. Together, you're a powerhouse.
That's right, because again, it's not about me, it's about you. But
Yeah,
the principle here is, I know that there are skills that I don't have, like modern marketing
yeah.
is a weakness of mine, but in terms of production, my
Mhm.
experience is vast. And so if you combine the two, you've got a better outcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
get it. And what would you teach the less experienced Lola?
Just don't get too affected, like, because you said earlier about getting too attached or
Mm,
becoming emotional. Um, I can be, that was my biggest issue, was I was getting very, very attached to what I was doing, and it was such a big knock when things didn't go the way I planned it,
yeah,
and it was draining, genuinely draining. And I think for me, it would be to tell myself that somebody said to me once, this moment is not going to last forever. Next week you'll feel totally different. You'll look back at this and think, what on earth was I feeling? And I think that's now how I look at things. If I have a really bad day, then I'm just less affected. I think that was the other end. Also to not allow, as I say, I'm quite thick-skinned, but things do get to you, you do start doubting yourself occasionally.
I'm quite similar to you in that respect. It's that you can take the word skinned out, and then I'm just quite thick. So
Don't. No,
so
you're not. Not with how you've built your business. I don't think so.
so I want to know a bit about some of your clients, right?
Yeah,
Not naming
yeah.
names here, but in what I do, I deal with Hollywood A-listers,
Yeah.
and some of them can be proper nasty
Mm,
individuals. I'm not going to name names either. And but also business leaders, people with a lot of money. Some
yeah,
of them have been thoroughly
yeah.
unpleasant to us over the years. How do you treat, or how do you deal with difficult ones who treat you with zero respect?
Um, I think that, as we said earlier, smile and and the world will smile with you. I think,
Mm,
you have to, I hate the expression, but kill people with kindness. I think if you are professional and you remain straight to the point, you're here for a job, and look, you said about how do you walk away. Look, if somebody is really, really uncomfortable to deal with, I'm not
yeah.
gonna put myself through that, because that's the other thing, saying yes to everything. But actually, the price isn't right, even though you said that the price should be right, or, there's this sort of, they know better than you do and tell you sort of how to do your job. For
Hmm.
me, that's like, no, I feel that I need to reinstate that, I'm the professional here and I will sell it in the way that I see it to be sold.
What's the best
But
client interaction you've ever had?
give me the best. Um, Luckily I deal with so many people who are so nice. Having dealt with footballers, having dealt with celebrities, musicians, there's a lot round here actually, huge
Yeah, yeah,
amounts.
yeah, yeah.
Um, One of them is very famous. I can't disclose the name,
No,
but
no.
I work with him all the time. And I think, yeah, also having connections like the local football club and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's amazing. But yeah, they're generally great to deal with because I find them really interesting and they're actually normal people. Like, I'm sure you found this. They're just normal people. Some of
I've
them
worked a lot in football, and I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. But
really
yeah,
are they a bit crazy. Yeah, okay, all right. Maybe like
uh,
some of them a
um,
little bit. But
um,
divas, there are divas. But yeah, so my best reaction, I love it when you sell a property and you hand over the keys and people are so excited and they because the best reaction I had was I sold a flat near Sandbanks and I gave the keys over and the lady literally she got me all these gifts and like some really expensive gifts and I don't like to accept gifts, but she said to me, Lola, you have done something that no other agent, like she had 3 failed transactions, it was an absolute nightmare and I'd managed to do that for her and she was so grateful, and to this day we still keep in touch. And it's that sort of, I changed her life because she was becoming very, very stressed about the situation she was in. And that made me realize like how much this can have an effect on people's lives.
oh yeah, and we are well over our time, by the way,
Yep.
which makes our program long. But there's a couple of things that I really want to ask you.
Yeah, of course.
Uh, how important is honesty and realism?
Huge.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
everybody thinks their property's worth more than it is, and
Mm.
everybody who wants to buy wants to pay less.
Yeah.
So
So
how do you deal with that?
sort of where I touched on earlier about the mathematical side of it.
Hmm.
So with this, I was never great at maths in school, just put it out there, because I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm amazing at maths. However, I've learned, that you really have to be spot on in terms of working out your average price per square foot in and around 2-3 mile radius around that property. Also, you might have some inside knowledge of what's just sold or who's
Hmm.
interested in what and what they're going to pay for it. So you've really got to do your research, and sort of when you're going on valuations, make sure that, yeah, you've got your sort of stats and your list of things to share with that potential client.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, it's a really important part of my job to make sure that it's valued correctly. I don't like this sort of, we'll put it on because I want to win the instruction, so therefore I'll give you a price which is unrealistic, and then it sits on the market. It's not fair on, I'm not even thinking about my business, I'm more thinking about the fact that it's not fair on the client because it's unrealistic and you're going to sit there for months not selling it. So I always come somewhere in the middle. I'm usually not the lowest valuation. I'm usually somewhere in the middle because
It's
I
a good
am a high
place to be.
achiever.
Yeah.
And I also know that that's a realistic price and it's a good price. And if you go too high, it's just going to sit there and it's going to be completely a pointless exercise.
Undervaluing can be as big a problem as
Oh, for
overvaluing.
sure, yeah.
Because an agent loses a percentage of a fee, but the
Yeah.
homeowner loses the whole
It's
difference
massive.
in valuation. Yeah.
That's the thing. I always say to people, I want to get you the most amount of money. And it's genuinely because of my compassionate side of me. I want people to walk away and feel happy about it. I don't like I don't like that feeling when somebody feels disappointed, like because they
Yeah.
haven't got as much as they want, and that's not something I look to achieve. I get very frustrated when I do valuations and I've given a figure and then it comes back, oh, well, such and such said it's more. And then they put it on with that person. They spend 6 to 8 months with that person and then they give it back to me.
Right.
And then, but at that point, that agent has ruined the brand of that property, for example,
Yeah.
because they put it on too high. It's gone stale. People are seeing it day in and day out on Rightmove, or, it might not even need to go on Rightmove straight away. It might just be a social media job because a lot of my business comes from social media. So they ruin that for the seller.
You see a property that's been there a long time, you
Yeah.
automatically think must be something wrong with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got 3 more questions
Go
and
for it.
I'm going to race you through these. All right.
Yeah.
So how
It's a
do you?
hard job with the way I talk.
No. It's been interesting. So how do you plan for your financial future, such as a pension? You're a young person, and
Yeah.
believe me, as somebody who is 15 times your age, as
Stop.
it soon comes around, and you need to plan. So how do you plan?
I think at the moment that's like a long way off for me because I know I'm trying to work out what's the most important for me now, where to invest and where to put the money. I am hugely keen on Dubai investments, and I know there's a lot of people that push Dubai investments, and it's probably not necessarily the right investment to make, but there are so much which are in Dubai at the moment, and I want to start investing more there. And I feel like there's prices are tripling in the space of a year and a half, so if I'm going to make money, that's sort of where I'm going to be putting money. I also look at, Portugal, and
I love Portugal.
I love Portugal. Yeah, it's an amazing place.
Yeah.
Literally amazing.
Lovely people too.
Amazing people, and the food's amazing,
Yeah.
culture's amazing. So, yeah, but back onto that, I think for me in the UK at the moment, they're making it very difficult for young people. Like, as a entrepreneur and a young person, I've had no help literally at all
Yeah.
from the government, really. Like, I think there's so many hoops you have to go through, and I think people who have that spark and who have an idea that's going to work, I think the government should invest. I think there should be things they do. I know they have grants and things, but you have to be like an Einstein who's coming up with some sort of new like cure for some medical issue, and then they give you some money. It is literally, and I've done it myself, but most people don't have that sort of money. And the reason I did is obviously the modeling and also my time in property and my commissions and all of that. But
Yeah, no, you've done fantastically.
yeah,
I'll jump to my last question.
yeah.
Give me your 3 top tips for success in business.
3 top tips. Resilience. So just being as resilient as you can. Don't let things get to you. I keep going on about this, but just don't, because it wears you thin. And when you feel like that, go and do the things that you love doing, change your mind. And as you said earlier off camera, you said, like, if there's a bad day or something and something's gone wrong, then you're not going to follow up that other potential client because actually that might go wrong. So don't just focus on another positive day, like next day is a new day. Number 2, I would say just be authentic, be honest, be truthful. There's a stereotype of estate agents being dishonest. That's something I've always been against. I've always been taught about honesty. I feel like, a thief is less bad than a liar, because
Good point.
with a liar, you never know where you stand. With a thief, at least you do. That's what they do. Like, for me, that's the biggest thing. It's just always, no matter what business you're in, just be honest and be truthful, and people will like you for that.
People buy from people.
People buy from people hugely. And I think, yeah, number 3 is just never lose the passion for it. I know I'm still very young and I've got a long way to go, and I don't
I'm
take
going
that
to
for
teach you
granted.
all about cynicism when we finish.
Yes, I think that's the thing that I found really frustrating throughout my years is the negativity that I hear from other industry professionals, and I just think, like, just give it up. Like, give it up, go do something else. Maybe you'd be happier. Like, I don't know, it's just that for me is the worst thing. Like, if you're going to be negative about something, then just don't give negativity to other people. People don't want to hear that.
I was thinking of a word to finish the show
Yeah.
with and to describe our chat. And I think I've come up with one. Refreshing, I think is what it is. Thanks
Thank
very
you.
much, Lola. I've really enjoyed it.
I've really enjoyed it as well, and it's gone so quickly, honestly. It's crazy how
That's a
quickly
good
this has
thing.
gone. But yeah, thank you so much.
That's another episode of the Leading Lives podcast, and it's come to an end. We've now reached over 20, so keep watching out for more, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.